The review embargo broke this morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, and I read and watched all of them, so you don't have to. Here is everybody's first take on the Apple Vision Pro, and instead of focusing on just one review, I'm going to take bits and pieces from all the reviews. First up, at the time of this recording, Marquess Brownlee just has an unboxing video up, so check that out if that's your thing. Running through everybody else, TheVerge, The Wall Street Journal, others, the general consensus seems to be this. Marvelous display, great hand and eye tracking, and it works seamlessly inside the ecosystem. But again, it's pricey, and different folks had different takes on what the use case would be. Nilay, of course, did the review at TheVerge. They gave it a 7 out of 10. They noted that video passthrough can be blurry, which a lot of people seem to pick up on. Maybe Apple oversold that, quoting Nilay. The goal is for the Vision Pro to be a complete device that can sit right alongside the Mac and the iPad and Apple's ecosystem of devices and let you get real work done. You can use Excel and WebEx and Slack in the Vision Pro, and you can also sit back and watch movies and TV shows on a gigantic virtual 4K HDR display, and you can mirror your Mac's display and just use the Vision Pro to look at a huge monitor floating in virtual space. It sounds amazing, and sometimes it is, but the Vision Pro also represents a series of really big trade-offs that are impossible to ignore. Some of those trade-offs are very tangible. Getting all this tech in a headset means there's a lot of weight on your face, so Apple chose to use an external battery pack connected by a cable, but there are other more philosophical trade-offs as well. As I've been using it for the past few days, I kept coming up with a series of questions about whether the trade-offs were worth it. Is using the Vision Pro so good that I'm willing to mess up my hair every time I put it on? Is it so good that I want to lug it around in its giant carrying case instead of my laptop bag? Is it so good that I want to look at the world around me through screens instead of with my own eyes? Basically, I keep asking if I prefer using a computer in there rather than out here. And as interesting as the Vision Pro is, there's a long way to go before it can beat out here, end quote. He said the external battery pack was fine because you're mostly using it stationary. Here's Joanna Stern picking up on that in her review from the Wall Street Journal. Quote, the battery pack didn't bother me much, even if I looked like a high-tech marionette. But I did have to charge every 2 to 3 hours, so most of the time I plugged myself into the wall with the 5-foot cord, end quote. As for computing, as for the visual keyboard, as Gruber and Baratunde told us on the pod recently, it's basically worthless. You'll want your Mac keyboard, quoting Joanna again. There is a built-in virtual keyboard so you can type in thin air, but it will drive you mad for anything longer than a short message. And selecting smaller buttons with a pinch should be a carnival game. I started getting real work done once I paired the Vision Pro with a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse. I leveled up again by connecting my MacBook Pro, which let me write this review on a giant virtual monitor hovering over my desk, end quote. What about your eyes being projected outward when someone walks up to you? Oh, and those personas if you try to do some FaceTiming? Here's Chris Velasco in the Washington Post. When you're wearing Vision Pro and you turn to look at an actual person, or if one wanders into your field of view, you'll see them emerge through your app windows. And at least in my experience, talking to those folks feels pretty normal since you can see them as you always would. But of course, you'll look a little odd with a computer strapped to your face, even when its outer screen is displaying a facsimile of your eyes. Visual indicators on the headset's outer screen make it clear when you're not actively engaged in a conversation, but products like this are still so niche that talking to someone wearing a headset just feels strange. FaceTime video calls are weird on the Vision Pro too because at no point does the other person see your real face. Instead, they see a blinking, winking, computer-generated persona of you. Creating one involves holding the headset in front of your face as you move your head around, smile, raise your eyebrows, and close your eyes, but the results are sort of a mixed bag. My persona's facial features were mostly on point, though the Vision Pro made my bald head look a bit like one of the cone heads. And even good-looking personas like the ones used by Apple spokespeople I chatted with are clearly denizens of the uncanny valley, end quote. Here was Joanna Stern's take. You look awful, my sister said. It's like Botox from hell, remarked the always kind Jason Gay. Frightening, said my dad, end quote. Everybody seemed to love the actual computing part of it, the throwing windows on all the walls in front of you. Here's Tom's guide, quote, for starters, it's a multitasking champ, thanks to the built-in M2 chip that runs the OS. For example, I launched Safari in the center of my space, then I turned to my left and asked Siri to launch Slack, and the app appeared. Then I turned to the right of Safari and opened Apple Music so I could have that playing in the background. Even better, it's easy to move apps around in your virtual space by selecting the bar beneath the app, and you can resize them by staring at the bottom right corner and dragging it with your finger. If you want to close an app, you can either stare at the X beneath the window or simply ask Siri to close all apps. You can also go back home at any time by long pressing the digital crown. You don't get multiple desktop views, but you do get a crystal clear 4K display that renders text crisply, and you can make that canvas positively huge, so it dwarfs most of the best monitors. Your keyboard and mouse still work as they normally would with no latency. You can even use your keyboard in Vision Pro apps if you want. Yes, only Apple could do this, and I could see myself taking the Vision Pro on business trips and using it back at the hotel, end quote. Exactly the use case, as you know, I've been saying Apple needs to lean into, maybe. Tom's Guide gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, by the way. But what about the entertainment stuff? CNET says it's the best wearable display they've ever put on. Quote, the 4K resolution per eye micro OLED display tech Apple uses is basically the retina moment for VR and AR. It's vivid, richly colored, HDR, and just stunning. Not only is it good enough for movies, something Apple is touting constantly, but it's better than any TV in my house. There are limits, though. Apple isn't specifically confirming the field of view, but it feels a bit smaller than the Meta Quest 3, like seeing an amazing monitor through a scuba mask. The headset's refresh rate is generally around 90 Hz, but can go up to 100 Hz. Some VR headsets can do 120 Hz, but the Vision Pro looks great for film and video and seems fine for games so far, too. Right now, the closest thing to a killer app the Vision Pro has is its cinema-level video playback. That's a hard sell for a $3,499 headset, but if you go for a demo and see it, you'll probably be just as stunned as I've been. Movies can float in your room like hovering TVs or be placed in a virtual cinema mode, end quote. CNET concluded by rating it 7.8 out of 10. Everybody has to mention how expensive this is. Various people complain about the short battery life, the heaviness of the device when you wear it over time, too. Here's CNET's take. It's comfy at first, but after half an hour, the headset feels top-heavy and pushes in on my cheeks a bit. It's fine for short sessions, though, end quote. Here was Nilay's take, quote, the most noticeable thing about the hardware after a while is that it's just heavy. You're supposed to wear this thing on your face for long stretches of computer time, and depending on which band and light seal you use, the headset alone weighs between 600 and 650 grams. I keep joking that the Vision Pro is an iPad for your face, but it's heavier than an 11-inch iPad Pro at 470 grams and pushing close to a 12.9-inch iPad Pro at 682 grams. So in a very real way, it's an iPad for your face. All of the Vision Pro's heft is totally front-loaded too. You're just gonna feel it after a while, end quote. So is there a reason for you to run out and buy this right now? Is there a use case for this for most people? Not down the road, but today? Here was CNET's conclusion, quote, do I believe in the destination of this mixed reality future? Yeah, I've been writing about it for 10 years. I can see it coming. Apple Vision Pro is a moment where the ecosystems are starting to finally arrive. The hardware is hitting levels of audio-visual quality that are truly remarkable, and input systems are being reinvented. It's an exciting time, and Vision Pro won't be the only product in this landscape. However, it'll likely be the most influential since the Oculus Rift. That said, it's clearly not a device you need to get on board with now. The Mac debuted 40 years ago this month, a coincidence that Apple seems well aware of. The Mac was the birth of modern computing, but few people had the first Mac. Will the Vision Pro be the first step toward modern spatial computing in mixed reality as we know it from now on? Maybe. What really makes Vision Pro seem futuristic isn't the display or the apps, it's the input, eyes and hands. Other headsets have eye tracking and hand tracking, but none have the combination working as smoothly, subtly, and intuitively as Vision Pro, end quote. And here was Nilay's conclusion in TheVerge, quote, the Vision Pro is an astounding product. It's the sort of first-generation device only Apple can really make, from the incredible display and pass-through engineering to the use of the whole ecosystem to make it so seamlessly useful, to even getting everyone to pretty much ignore the whole external battery situation. There's a part of me that says the Vision Pro only exists because Apple is so incredibly capable, stocked with talent, and loaded with resources that the company simply went out and engineered the hell out of the hardest problems it could think of in order to find a challenge. There are a lot of trade-offs, though, big trade-offs, not little ones. And the biggest trade-off of all is that using the Vision Pro is such a lonely experience, regardless of the weird ghost eyes on the front. You're in there, having experiences all by yourself that no one else can take part in. After using the Vision Pro for a while, I've come to agree with what Tim Cook has been saying for so long. Headsets are inherently isolating. That's fine for traditional VR headsets, which have basically turned into single-use game consoles over the past decade, but it's a lot weirder for a primary computing device, end quote.